What's up everybody, VHE Tutor here, and welcome to part 3 of Half-Life modding in 2022. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, getting the tools you need and then setting up your mod in Steam, I would go check those out. And in part 3, what we're going to do is we're going to create a map, and in that map I'm going to show you the start point. We're going to show you how to name the level. We're going to use a sliding door and a glass window, as well as a scripted sequence and a scripted sentence. So we got a lot here, so let's just jump into it. So I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to select our game configuration, and it's loading in stuff from the Half-Life Valve folder. And just to show you that the models do show up because they are in your Half-Life Valve folder, if we place a G-Man out here, he will show up, our lovely G-Man. And we can also have him like do stuff if we select a different sequence number in here. I don't know what they correlate to, so it's kind of a guess and check, but you can figure that out in the level editor, the asset editor. Actually, if we right click and go view model, it will open our asset editor, and we could even do sequences. Could say big yes, that is sequence number 10, and that's what we got there. Anyway, so like I said, we're going to do a start point, a level title, sliding door, glass window, and some scripted sequences and sentences. So I'm just going to start by building a room. I'm going to go to the browse button over here, and let's see. And keep in mind that this is directed at someone who has never touched a map editor before, so I'm going to keep it basic while also going into some trickier stuff. You can stay for that if you want, but let's just get into it. So I'm going to browse for a texture over here. I want to choose my texture before I lay down the law, because it's not like in Source where you have those developer textures, although I'm sure you could get some. So I'm just going to start with a floor. A lot of times textures, the texture names are pretty truncated. So a lot of times you'll see FLR. Sometimes you will see FL00R, excuse me. But I'm just going to type FLR. We get a wider range of floor textures. So why don't we go for a like a lab type, like a C1AO type area. So I'm going to press the brackets left and right on my keyboard, and as we can see down in the bottom right hand corner, our snap-on grid size is changing. So I'm just going to go with 16. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and why don't I just create something simple? 256, that might be not enough. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, this is the block creation tool, by the way, this one here. You can just click and drag on the grid to get a shape, and then I'm going to press this little light bulb, which is actually our entity creation tool, and I'm going to place down, it should be the default, but I'm going to place down an info player start. I'm going to just click on it in the 3D space to get some scale of how big this is. So it's pretty small, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to if you hold space, you can click and drag around to get a better location. You can move the grid around. So I'm going to actually make it do something like this. And we can see our grid sizes here. We want to stay to the texture. So if we look over here, we see we got 128 by 128. It's not as bad for floor textures because they repeat pretty easily, but generally speaking, you want to stay in the same scale as the texture. So 512 is a pretty decent room, so we'll go with this, and then I'm going to search W1 for wall 1, see what we get. We are getting some lab type stuff here, like this is seen in C1AO. It's actually the name of the texture, C1A0 underscore W1D4. So we'll just choose one for fun. We're not too worried about the texture for now. So I'm just going to build a wall, make it 16 units thick, and then we'll bring it up. And it is 160 in height. We can tell that over here on the right. So I'll make it 160 in height and then put it actually on top of the floor. So we'll hit enter, and then we can fit it, and then see how it stretches it. It looks really gross. if we click on the texture and we look, we can see that the X value has been stretched to a factor of 4. So I just like to change that back to 1. But I hit fit because that way it automatically fits the texture for us, and we just have to fix the scaling. So what we can do now is click on that with the selection tool. We'll click on it in the 3D space, and if we hold shift and then drag and then let go of the mouse button, and I'm still holding shift, now I have let go of shift, we get a duplicate. So it's a pretty quick way to copy a wall. So I'm going to click on our texture application mode tool, and if we click on this face, by the way, I'm hitting Z to float around in 3D space, and then I right click on this wall over here. It applies the same texture properties as this one. So that is a quick way to get textures looking the same. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to hold shift, click and drag, let go of my mouse button, and then now if we click on the brush here, these are called brushes, we see that we have different modes here. So these little round circles allow us to go into rotation mode. So I just rotated it, and now I'm going to click back into the regular mode right here. Going to put this right in here, going to fit it, and then of course I'm going to click and drag, and now we have a box room, which is not very pretty, but it gets us started. So I'm going to do the floor, just drag this up and above, and now we have our first room. It's a pretty bland looking box, but you know, you start with the lower level framework, and then you build from there. So we're going to include we're going to do a light. So if we go +0, those are your active textures. I like these 50s lights is what the name stands for. So, and that's what I'm going to choose. And we can see that it is 64 by 80. So I'm just going to create a 64 by 80 block here. Going to bring it up. And then I'm actually going to go down in grid size a little bit. I'm going to go to 4 because we don't really want this being too thick. We can get a preview here. That looks decent. I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to fit it, and we can see that it is doesn't look like the way it should. So I'm actually going to rotate that, and then that's actually how it should. Well, no, I think we need to rotate that 90 degrees and then fit it. Yeah, that looks better. And we can't forget these sides here, because this would look not good if we didn't do something about it. So I like to click our texture application tool, click on the side, and browse for a texture. We just want something generic, kind of metal looking. There is a steel texture, I believe, so that's one that I like to go to often. So I'm going to hit apply, and as you can tell, it applied it to this face. And so if we click on it, make sure it's highlighted, I'm going to right click on all the other faces. Oops, Control Z to undo that. Click on all the other faces, and also put it on the underside. Good practice. I guess you could do null texture, but I'm not too concerned about that right now. And you know what? I want to rotate this, so rotate that. And then this won't automatically light up on its own. And there is texture lighting that we can use, text lights, but I'm going to go over that in a different video. For now, I am just going to use the light entity. So I'm going to click on my entity tool. I'm going to go in this list. I'm going to select light, and I'm going to place it just under the light, but you don't want it touching the light, just under it. So if we hit enter, we get this yellow looking bulb. So Jack just crashed on me, and I had to redo my game file. So what we want to do is we want to enable autosave. That way, if your jackhammer crashes, you'll still have something saved. So I'm going to do the default's probably fine. Save every 5 minutes. Use directory of current file. That works. So I have to start the map all over, but I won't show you that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to do a file save as first. And I'm going to do 2022 first map. And I'm going to save that. Okay, and don't forget to save your map. I turned on autosave, so let's try to open this light. Cool. So now we can see that the bulb is yellow. That actually gives you a preview of what color it's going to be. So let's change that to white. So let's go to this brightness tab. we'll hit this pick color button and we can just select white. Okay. Now you can see that it has changed to white. And these first three numbers here are each the red, green, blue value of the color. And the last one is brightness. So 200 is the default. That's pretty standard. So I'm going to save that. So we have a room with a light. And if we compiled it and ran it, we would spawn right here with a light in the room. So that's pretty decent. But why don't we add a door and then we'll add a window as well. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to copy and paste this whole thing. I'm going to hold shift and click and drag. And now we have 2 rooms. But I'm going to delete this wall because we don't need it. And I'm going to just connect it like so. But what we need to watch out for is, we're going to delete this wall though. What we need to watch out for is these walls. So, you know what? We don't want to delete that wall. Oh, that sound means it saved. I'm pretty sure. And then, so why don't let's undo that deletion of the wall. And we don't want it to be super thick. So what can I do? Oh yeah, we don't need this. Can I move these forward? Yeah, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the floor and ceiling back. I'm going to connect it up like so. And that way our wall is the only thing that is in between it. So what we can do actually is we can go to this carve tool over here and we can split the wall in 2. And if you look, 1/2 is red, 1/2 is white. Anything in red would get cut out and deleted. But if we do Shift X, it changes the mode. And all I want to do is create a split in the wall. So I'm going to make sure both halves are white with my Shift X, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I can drag out from there a space for a door. And then I'm also actually going to carve out a hole for a window here. So why don't we do that? We'll cut it here. Here, it'll be a decent sized window. But I don't want the whole thing cut, so this isn't necessarily to scale. But we have a window now. And what we can do actually is delete these. We can extend this to be, just have less cuts in the wall. It's better for the R speeds. Perfect. And then why don't we fix up the inside of this wall? So what we can do is we can actually grab the inside of a different texture, but just a solid color, not one with the stripe in it, and that way it doesn't look so wonky. And then what we'll do for the window is we'll just search glass, because there's a few glass textures. We can go with this light one, this blue one, and then we can take our block creation tool and we'll go inside here. I'm not going to fully extend it. I like to have a little bit of like a little breathing area in there. We'll size that down, hit enter. And it just looks nicer when you have a bit of a lip around. So what we want to do to make this see-through actually is we're going to click on it and then we're going to do Control T on the, I'm going to save it actually, Control S, and we're going to do Control T to tie it to an entity. And Funk Wall is actually the one we want. So we don't need to name it or anything. All we want to do is change the render mode to texture. And then the amount is how much it's going to be see-through or not. So if we do something like 50, we can see in the preview here in Jackhammer that it is going to be pretty transparent. But what happened if we, I have this button checked. We don't want this button checked. This will ignore items and it won't show up as the entity. So make sure that's unchecked anyway. If we double click on it, and then why don't we change it to 255 is the max. You can't see through it at all. So why don't we go with like a clean 100. Pretty transparent, but not too transparent. And this wall is unbreakable. Because it is this window, excuse me, is unbreakable because it's a func wall. If we wanted it to be breakable, we could do something like func breakable. And you know, why don't we do that just for fun? We'll give it a better strength than 1. We'll give it 20. Material type, we will select glass. We don't really need to change anything else. You know, there are other things you can do, like you can have it spawn stuff. You can have it explode even. But the main thing is material type is glass, and want to make sure that the render mode is texture, and then set it to a value of like 100. So everybody likes breaking glass in Half-Life, so we'll make it breakable. And because we copied our room, we have a light in the other room already, so why don't we go ahead and make a door now. So if we search door, a classic lab door would be this one, lab1_door7. And we can tell that it is 64 by 96, which is the dimensions for it. So we like to say in the dimensions of the game, so we're going to create one that is 64 by 96. So we just happen to cut out a perfect 64 wide gap. That's beautiful. If you don't, you can just adjust your wall length like this. So I'm going to go back to the block creation tool, and then it is 96 in height, so we'll drag it down to 96. Bang, we'll hit enter. And then if we just do a, I like to align to face, I don't know why, it's always been a thing. If that's incorrect, someone tell me. And then I'm going to right click, so that way they are the same on both sides. And we don't want to forget to do the inside here. So if we look at this line right here, this left side, it's a solid patch of white. So if we shift these, you know what, why don't we move it out so we can actually see it. If we shift the X and Y, you can see that it is changing where the texture is on the block. What I'm noticing is that we could have this line in there, or if we made the door just a little thinner, 8 units, we might be able to get away with just a solid edge. Perfect, that's beautiful. So I just right clicked on the top here, but it has this line in the middle. And there's one trick you can do. If you hold Alt and then click on it, it'll apply it relative to the axis that it's on. Sometimes you want to do just a regular right click, and sometimes you want to do an Alt right click. And then for this end, I'll just do a regular right click, and the door is looking good. So that way when it opens, it won't look weird. So we will put this door back in place, and then we need to fill in this top gap. So I'm actually going to take a little bit from here, shift drag it, let go of the mouse, and bring it down. Boom. Now we have a door. Do is we want to bring the texture over. There we go. Looks cleaner now. Now we need to make it actually a door. We need to tell the game that it is going to be a door. So just like we did for the glass, going to click on it and then Control T. And in this list, we're going to go to func door, because that's the entity for a door. And we have a ton of options here. You can have it start open. You can have it toggle. Use only, but we're going to keep it pretty straight and simple. We don't need a name, but we do want to set the direction. So this little yaw grid here was actually going to change the rotation that it opens on. And if you click on this arrow, you can also do up and down, but we're not doing that right now. So if we look in the top grid here, we can see that the player starts here. So this is kind of what we're looking at right now. Pretend we want it to open this way, because if it opened this way, it would run into the glass. So we'll have it open this way. So we'll double click on it. And if we just point this down, it aligns to the top view. So if we point it down, it's going to go this way. So that's how you choose that. I like to do a little bit of a lip. Lip is how far it's going to stick out when it's open. So just do a small 3 or 4. It's just nice to have. So delay before close. You have 4 seconds before it closes on its own. And speed is the speed. 100 is pretty standard. Why don't we be spicy and put it to 150? Then we can do move sounds. Unfortunately, there's no preview for these, so you kind of have to just guess and check, compile it, run it, see what it sounds like, and change from there. We'll go pneumatic sliding. We'll do a little clang reverb. See how that sounds. And a lot of these can be used too, but we're not going to mess with them for now. So we're going to do a save. And so we've got a room with a window and a door and some lights. So I'm going to hit F9. I want to take a look at this. I want to see what it's looking like. I like to do don't run the game. We can just leave everything on normal. Pretty standard stuff for now. So we'll compile it, and it's automatically going to put it in the Oh, we have a leak. What did I do? I see. I didn't put this wall in the right spot. I must have forgotten it. So I'm going to get rid of this point file. Not unloading. Thank you. And I'm going to drag that back. A little oopsie there. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to compile it again. And it's going to automatically put it in the maps folder because Jackhammer is smart like that. So why don't we verify? Yeah, there it is. The BSP file, 2022_first maps. So let us open our VHE tutor. Okay, so I'm going to open the console by hitting the tilde key, which is under the escape key. And I'm going to go map 2022_first map. And don't worry, I'll show you how to set it as the new game. So here we are. We don't have an HEV suit or anything, but it plops us right in the map. As we can see, we can look right through this. Pretty cool. So those sounds don't really seem to match very well, but we can always change those. I'm going to quit this for now. I like the opening sound. I don't like the close sound. So I'm going to go to stop sound. I'm going to go light ear brake. That sounds a little bit better. And how about, we'll pretend we're Gordon Freeman. So how about when we get into this room, we'll have a scientist that walks across the room and says some scientist thing, right? So we're going to mess around with some scripted sequences and scripted sentences. So I'm going to take my entity tool. I'm going to do a monster scientist. I'm going to plop him down there. I'm going to take our selection tool and I'm going to rotate him. Click once to change the mode, and then we'll go in there. So we're going to need a name for this guy. And we want to do, in the flags here, pre-disaster. Now, this is going to tell the game that this scientist is existing in a world before the resonance cascade. So it'll be as if everything is right in the world. So we'll call this guy something simple. We'll just call him Psi. You can also change which he is: Glasses, Einstein, Luther, or Slick. You can choose that, or you can just have it be random. When we do random for now. So his name is Psi, and that's all we need to do to him. And all right, so let's get our scripted sequence, which is the entity that tells the scientist to run or walk or even teleport somewhere. So we'll have him just walk to the other side of the room. And we'll open this. And the yaw in here matters too. I'm going to direction it this way so that he's kind of looking at the door when he's done. So we need a name for this because it needs to be triggered by something and we need to be able to identify it. So we'll call it, we'll just call it walk 1. And if we wanted to, we could have it target something when he gets there, but we're just going to keep it simple for now. So the target monster is going to be Psi. This is where, this is the field that says we want this monster to do this, and our guy's name here is Psi. So we'll go back in here. Action animation is an animation that the monster does when it gets there. So why don't we mess around with that? So I'm going to right click on him. I'm going to go view model. And it's going to open up in the model viewer. And if we go to sequences, we can see what he has for animation. So why don't we do this one? I like this one. It's called pondering. So if we go back in here, action animation, we just write pondering. And when he gets there, he will do that animation. And so we'll say move to position. So you don't have to have him walk there or do anything. You can just have it be an animation, but we'll have him walk, and we'll leave that as is for now. So how do we make this happen? Because it's not gonna, this scripted sequence isn't gonna automatically start when the map starts. So how do we make that happen? Well, with a trigger. So we're gonna go into our textures over here. We're gonna search trigger. We're going to get this AAA trigger texture. Click on that. I'm going to take our block tool, and why don't we have it happen as soon as you walk through the door? But you have to walk through it first. So we will create a unavoidable trigger that as soon as you walk through the door, it triggers a scripted sequence. So if we do Control T and we go trigger once, because we only want it to happen once. We could do it multiple times, but we're just going to do it once for now. This doesn't need a name. All it needs is a target. And Jackhammer actually shows us a list of entities in here that we can select. So we'll select walk 1. If we close out of it, what I want to do actually is go up here. There's a transparency button. Where is it? I like the transparency. Toggle transparency. Yeah, I like that. So that way you can see through it. Otherwise your maps get pretty cluttered. So I like to be able to see through it. So once we walk through this trigger, the scientist will walk over here, and then he'll look over here and do the pondering. But what I also want to do is have him say something to the player at the same time. So we can check to see actually what the scientist can say, but if we go into our Half-Life Valve folder and then in sound and then sentences.txt. So everything, these are all the speakable sentences in the game. So there is a scientist category. If we scroll down a bit, we start to see SC. And these are all the scientist sentences. And if we go into the scientist folder here, we'll actually be able to preview them. So if we do SC hello 7, it says that it lives in scientist/hello from lab. So why don't we go look at that? Hello from lab.
You are from the anomalous materials lab. Yes, I recognize you.
That's a very scientist thing to say. So why don't we do that? So it's SC hello 7. So I'm going to take out our entity tool again. I'm going to place down a scripted sentence. And where this gets placed doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put it over where he's going to be when he says it, but it's really preference. And so this needs a name too. And for the sake of simplicity, we're not going to throw in a multi-manager just yet. We're going to give it the same name, walk 1, as the scripted sequence, and they'll just both trigger at the same time. So that's what we're going to do. So we don't need a target unless you want something else to happen when he's done saying it. But we do need a sentence name. And if we go back into these sentences, we can see that it's called SC_hello 7. So what we need to do here is an exclamation point, bang, SC_hello 7. I don't know why you need the exclamation point, but you do. And then speaker type. We need to define who is going to say it. So we just put in our name of our scientist. And then something else that's cool is listener type. If you don't specify anything in here, he'll just say it. But what you can do is if you do specify listener type as player, the scientist is going to look at you when he says it. You could also put in another monster. So if you had a Barney, and you named him Barn 1, you could put in Barn 1 in here, and he would look at that Barney. But we'll just put in player for now. To tell you the truth, I don't know what all these do over the years. I like to do fire once. I think these might actually be, some of them might be broken, but we've named it walk 1, and we have our triggering walk 1, so it'll trigger both things named walk 1 at the same time. But what we can do, we'll just give it a 1-second delay, so that way he's walking, and then he walks for a second, and then he says it. So we'll save it, we'll hit F9, and we'll compile it and just say yes, I want to export it again. And while that's doing that, why don't we go and change the first level to that map? So we'll go into our VHE tutor folder, and we'll go into the liblist.gam, and see this start map here. What we want to do is set it to 2022_first map. That is the name of the map. And if we save it, it will now show that it will select that as the first map when you say new game. All right, so here we are. So we're gonna hit new game and play, and bam, here we are. We are in our map. We look through the window here, we can see our scientist waiting and ready to go. So let's try it.
Hello. I must remember to report that fluctuation.
He didn't say it. So why is that? This is part of the mapping process. We have to figure out why he didn't say it. He did say hello, but so name is walk 1. Why don't we go interrupt speech? It's possible that the hello that he said blocked it. We'll make sure sentence name SC hello 7 speaker type psi listener type. All right, so we'll try that again. And then I'm going to go into the console map. Well, we can do map 22 first map, but it will also work if you hit new game again.
You are from the anomalous materials lab. Yes, I recognize.
There, he said it. We needed that interrupt speech because when he said hello the first time, it interrupted it.
I hope those containment parameters are still nominal.
So, that was part 3 of the series where we create the map, we compile it, and we set it as the start map. And in this video, we looked at creating the room, the light, the player start. And before I forget, we're going to name the level, the chapter, if you will. So if we go map and then map properties, we actually have a list of things here that we can do. We can even change the sky name if we had one. So we'll just call it chapter 1. And I believe it is the chapter title message. Welcome to VHE Tutor. I think this will have it, and we can also have it fade in, but I think chapter title message will have the name show up, or have this text show up. So why don't we try it real quick. A new game, medium. Yes, there it is.
You are from the anomalous materials lab. Yes, I recognize you.
So that is it for part 3. And we also created a door, a window, and some scripted sentences and sequences. So the next part will be part 4. That'll be personalizing your mod. So we'll look at creating an icon for it in Steam as well as a background image. And then later on down the line, we'll look at some more things we can do for mapping techniques, some stairs and some other things. So keep on the lookout for that, and I will see you in the next one.